Hey team, welcome back to another episode of the Intentional Agribusiness Leader podcast. This is your host, Mark Jewell, and today I am joined by Chris Robnett. He's the division lead of the Western Corn Belt for AgReliant Genetics. Chris, welcome to the conversation.
Hey, Mark, thanks for having me. Excited to be here and good to see you out and about.
Yeah, man, we are out and about mobile podcasting today, as it were. Not that people should be able to hear it, but what's cool is the technology allows us to do these things from just about anywhere these days. So, well, let's I want to dive in, man. What does it mean for you to be intentional?
Yeah, so I thought about this a little bit, and it just it's something done on purpose, right? Or something you're doing deliberately.
Yeah.
And so I'm a planner, Mark. I like to be. And if you looked at the strength finders and all those things, one of my things is going to be discipline, planning, yada yada.
Yep.
So, but I think there's a couple things you need to know. But you need to know who your team is, right? So it's the people first, but then you have to get them bought in. Okay, why are we going to do this? Number one, that's clarity and communication to be purposed. What are we gonna? Why are we doing it? What are we doing
Mm,
to achieve it? And then how are we going to do it? And if you get your team bought into that, I mean that's to me is just the intentionality of
yeah.
this is how we're going to attack this thing.
Yeah. So a great answer. And as somebody who has to work extra hard to be good at planning because it's not naturally in my strengths finder
Yeah.
um, reports, that's a lot of times it's something I outsource for and then bring my team into conversation around. But I'm curious, as somebody who have you developed any particular methods or tactics that help you to stay on top of the planning, the intentional scheduling, things like that?
Yeah, I think that's part of it. It is easy to come up with the idea and the plan, and plans are great, but if you don't follow up or execute on them, they're not worth a lot. So I think you
Right.
said a lot in your question you didn't really say, but you ask is what I like to do is after we do that, is kind of create. I'm a visual person, so a little bit of a timeline. Like, okay, here's what we're going to do. Here's the goal. And then just get out a little PowerPoint or draw on a piece of paper and say, okay, we're going to achieve this by this date, this by that date, and then you can add in some who owns what's the content need to be, how's it going to look, and then how do we build that forward, and then have those regular check-ins. I don't care if you're doing this with your team or customer or whoever, but Mark, if we walk away from a meeting and we say we're going to achieve something, I think it's important that I take away what I'm going to do and you take away what
Hmm.
you're going to do, and then we're going to compare notes, right? Periodically, I'm saying, hey, Mark, I've got this much done, and you got that much done, and
Yep.
where are we at? So long answer, but I like those check-ins.
Yeah. Do you have a certain cadence for check-ins that you like to follow?
It will depend on the project. Once every couple of weeks usually seems to work fairly good. So
Yep. Okay. Yeah, that's
depends on
good.
the tightness of the timeline. So,
Yeah, I think everybody, I don't know that there's a right answer to that question. I think that, w- well, I don't think I know what I encourage my clients to do, and what we try to do is be intentional about the cadence for checking in. Because when if it's, we have a Monday huddle, it's everybody knows it happens every Monday.
yeah,
Now there may be other check-ins on individual projects and different things throughout the week, and obviously we get into the week and things happen, and we got to adapt and adjust. But whether it's a regular check-in there, also a regular check-in for coaching with team members and things like
yeah,
that
yeah.
is
Those
also
are
important.
depending on the time. I agree. The other thing I think about when you say that, sorry, I like to talk, Mark, so didn't mean to jump in, but is
You're good. You're good.
the calendarized check-ins for team stuff. But when you're
Mm,
looking in agriculture at a sales cycle, I think we got to be careful not to let the calendar control us, but more the seasonality control us, right?
hmm.
If you're going to
Hmm.
check in on a business plan or this, that, if you say we're going to do it every 90 days, well, that's
Yep.
cool, but you may want to do it right before your cash discount, right after your cash discount, right below, but behind a delivery period. I mean, do those things tied to the actual activity or the time of the season versus, the calendar. So,
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really, really good point. As a service provider to companies like yours, to ag retail organizations, obviously there are limitations about the times of year that we can
yeah,
deliver training or be on site with clients and things like that. And exactly what you're saying right there is why we were actually this year we made the change to go away from a short-term coaching engagement, 90 days, because
yeah,
what if it's the wrong 90 days?
yeah.
Right. So now
We
we work with those clients all year long. And so we get to see the full calendar cycle and we'll be able to catch and then connect, monthly as we go through the year. But we're connecting about different things because what we talk about in April is not going to be the same conversation as September.
correct. And then you're also for your business, you get to talk to them about what's coming up, right? Because to
Yeah.
train somebody on something in the winter, they're not going to use until July. It's a little tough, right? You want to do it at the time. So
Yep. Absolutely. And it happens all the time.
yeah.
And it happens all the time. So, okay, Chris, give us a little bit of background of you, what you do with AgReliant. Fill us in.
Yeah. So it's not I don't know if it's a super exciting story or not, but been in the business for over 25 years. Spent 10 years in ag retail, great experience, got to do sales management, was a lot of input work, traded grain, managed rail, all that fun stuff. And then, probably 15 years ago, I had an opportunity to come to work for Monsanto at the time, growing
Mm-hmm.
company, worked in the chemistry business, sales rep. Then I worked in an account management role, which was managing all parts of the business, chemistry, seed. I mean, when you have 35 or 40 people going in to call on an account, you need a quarterback. So that was kind of my role and did it with several large companies, large co-ops, consolidated co-ops. Some of the acquisitions between some of these called national private-owned suppliers and how they were buying people. So worked with that, and then managed a team of AgReliant DeKalb across the central United States, central Illinois mainly. Doing that, then I went to work. I like change, Mark, and we can
Mm-hmm.
talk about that. It's kind of exciting. It's kind of fun. Actually, before I came here, I was the U.S. commercial lead for new business models at Bayer. So that was bringing the
Mm-hmm.
digital with some of the other sales and trying to drive some digitization of the agronomy purchases there. That was a lot of fun, but I miss the team. I miss the coaching.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what I enjoy is being out with the customers, being out with the dealers, and talking about the business and how do we grow it. So in April of last year, I came over to AgReliant. Um, Not everybody out there is probably familiar with us. Not trying to sell it, but I went from a really large company, a really innovative company, a great company, but I had a chance to come here, more of a mid-sized company. But when
Mm-hmm.
you think about these big ones, they're neat. They got a lot of upside. But to find a mid-sized company like AgReliant that focus strictly on genetics, plus we're what I call basic in the product we make. We,
Mm-hmm.
we have our own inbred lines. We use some others, but we have our own inbred lines, which there's only about four of us in North America that do that. So that's pretty cool.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty neat. That's really, really pretty neat. So tell us about your team and what does that look like leading that Western Corn Belt for
Yeah,
AgReliant?
yeah. So division lead, some people might call it regional lead. Everybody's got different terms for their geographies.
Sure.
And so basically, Illinois, Iowa, Wisconsin, Missouri, on into the West is kind of our core footprint here, and that's what we cover. And so we have a similar structure to a lot of organizations. I know some organizations are changing to go away from it, but us today is we have underneath me we'd have area managers, then we'd have district sales managers, and we go through like most people, independent agents or dealers to get our product to market.
Sure.
A lot of people in the company with a lot of history and experience. They bring a lot of legacy, a lot of that culture here, which is really awesome. Then we've got a lot of new ones too, and it's just trying to as we change and evolve. I wouldn't say our change is drastic on what we want the customer to feel, but how we
Yep.
manage the business is a little bit different, right? How do we have the
Mm,
reports? How do we have our structure? How do we follow through on that? I don't think
yeah.
it's any different from any organization in that growers are they they're not comparing you against the guy down the road. They're comparing you to their best experience, right? So
Mm,
if they
hmm.
can pick up their phone and look at their bank statement or their JDF statement or whatever that is, that's what they want from you. Is they want to be able to look at that stuff, doesn't have to be technology, but they want to be able to call you up and say, where's this product? Where's that product? When am I going to get it? And we have to get our systems, our people, and all that in sync to help meet that need. So we're competing with their experiences elsewhere. So.
Right, right. Certainly one of those things that plays into experience will be the people that you have on your team and so forth. So I'm curious what's working for you these days, and making sure that you have great people on the team, keeping the great people that you got. What would you share with the community?
Yeah, I think so. People's always the biggest challenge in all of our business, and
Hmm.
I don't know if this is right or not, but kind of the way I look at it is are there enough people at your organization or any organization? Yeah, probably we probably have enough. We sometimes some days you may have too many, some days not enough. But do
Hmm.
you ever have enough good ones? And the answer is always no, right? So it's
Yeah, yeah.
focusing your time on those good ones. I know a lot of people are like, oh, we got this person or that person who's challenged. We got to help them out. I'm not saying you shouldn't help them out, but I've always found you get more of a return on your time and a return on that investment when you spend it with your best ones, because those are the ones you want to retain and you want to grow and hand some more stuff off to those individuals. So to me, that worked. I know this morning we had a good guy. He's still with us. This is going to sound bad, but I was on some calls and they were pretty important calls, I thought. But I get the text and he'd had a fender bender with a tractor, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, not that I wouldn't do it for anybody, but it's like, hey, that's the little things. It's like, okay, I'm on the team's call. I'll be right back, guys. Call them up. Are you okay? What's going on? It's
Yeah.
just letting them know you're there for them anytime. Just just
Mm.
just be there. So
Yeah. Well, how do you maintain a calendar where there's things like that are going to come up, right? And so, being a planner, being someone who probably likes to kind of have things move
yeah,
according to the plan, but then there's disruptions like that. What works for you, and being able to stay intentional, create those little intimate, meaningful experiences for your people while balancing that with, hey, we got to get stuff done too, right?
yeah, yeah. So I think that's something I've learned over time, and I think other people can too, as well as just know those things are going to happen. Things are going to
Mm,
surprise you. Things are going to change. I do like to plan, and when my plan changes, it's kind of like, "Arr." But what I've learned, and I think COVID taught us a little bit of this. And I hate to use that as an excuse, but that is pre that time frame. You were always traveling. Whether you're in an airport, whether you're in a car or something, you had what I call margin, right? You always had that time to make a call, that time to do this, that time to do that to catch up.
yeah,
Well, then you go through that cycle, and people just started blocking that calendar. Boom, boom, boom. You're back to back from 6:30 a.m. till whatever time
yeah,
you decided to stop. And you're like,
exactly.
you're hiding yourself on the camera to eat lunch and things like that. So I think one thing I have done is simply blocking time on the calendar for workspace.
Yeah,
I know that sounds super simple. I'm sure everybody in the world has done it but me, but just block that time, get things knocked out. Usually I'm an early riser, so the thoughtful stuff goes early.
yep,
And then by the end of the day, that's more the task oriented, check stuff off. And if something comes in on top of those, it's fine. You can cancel them, you can move them. Um, I'm a clean
yeah,
slate kind of person, so I like to get stuff knocked out early, so that when
sure,
things surprise you, it's not as big
yeah,
a deal. I've found when I don't really think I've ever done it, but if you put stuff off till a deadline, you're boxing yourself into a corner. So
right, yep. Well, so there's two things that I want to come back and touch on from that. So one, your comment about blocking time, it's common sense. It makes sense. We know that we should do it, but the one part I disagree with is I don't think most people have figured that
okay,
out yet.
okay,
I don't, and I would love for that to be true. Mistakes can happen, things, would whatever come up and disrupt the calendar, things like that. But so you're absolutely right in saying, like, before you would have travel time sort of budgeted in. I can't do meetings during these times when I'm on the airplane at the airport. And the reality is, the most of us are in those places less than
yeah,
we used to be. There are times of the year where maybe we're in there a little bit more. I'm going through one of those seasons right now where I'm there a lot, but I'm going to move into a season now for Q2 where I won't be, right? And that
yeah,
part of my life is going to slow down. And so it's really easy to get caught up in just like, yep, there's white space on the calendar, fill it up, fill it up, fill it up, fill it up.
Yeah.
And suddenly a we don't have an intentional design of our time. And I find myself getting really, my brain almost getting really burned out when we're in these back-to-back Zoom meetings all day.
Yep, I agree. And then I think that's, I mean, you talk about intentionality is where we started, and where we're at now is once again super simple, but it's effective. Is Covey's four quadrants, right? And
Yeah,
why am I doing this? And why am I here? And that's what you might. I try to put the important early, and there's going to be times that people want to meet with you outside of that.
right.
The urgent you deal with, and just learn how to say no. That
Yeah.
creates a lot of freedom there too.
And that's okay too, right?
Yeah.
Boundaries are healthy. So the other part that you'd mentioned is, your thoughtful time of the day. What for me is, I would describe my most productive time of the day. And this is, I would just encourage people to start to pay attention to your natural rhythms. So and my observation in my house, my wife and I are on complete opposite rhythms. I am like, I'll wake up and I can grab a cup of coffee. I know that I need to get that workout in early or I won't get it later, but I'd like to do those things. And then I'll go sit down and I can hammer out some stuff.
Yep.
So between about 7 a.m. and 11 a.m., like, I can hammer out a lot of things as long as I'm focused during that time frame. It's when I have meetings during those times that really kind of disrupts my flow. My wife is the opposite. She likes a nice slow morning. She's going to do her reading, her journaling. She's going to focus on things that don't require her to be engaged with people. I think different people have different rhythms, but I think it's important for people to pay attention to what those natural rhythms are and be intentional about actually blocking time in your calendar to get your work done during those times. Because I know if it's admin focused things, the tedious overhead of running the business, and I'm trying to do that at 4 o'clock in the afternoon when my brain is just ready to kind of wind down, I don't do as well. If I
Yep.
put conversations with team coaching calls, those kind of things at that time of the day, I tend to do much better with those in the afternoon and then focus on my business work in the morning. So I assume that's kind of similar to how yours
Very
is, right?
similar. Yep. Yep.
But other things in the afternoon.
Yep. Yep. So like you said, just the strategy, business things, thought in the morning. Um, meeting with customers, stuff like that. If you could do that midday, and then, hey, you're right, wrapping up the day, just catching up with the team. You can do the scheduled calls, but that's a great time to just do those informal catch ups and check ins. I do try. I mean, it's kind of crazy, but I try to keep a list on my desk or when I travel of who are the people I haven't talked through for a while, and who do I just need to give a call to that day, and that's going to be the last part of the day, just checking in. So,
That's a really good use of that last part of the day. That's a good idea. I like that.
yep. Or when you're driving down the road, you got your list of, hey, I haven't talked to Jim or Sally or whoever for a while in your business or outside your business, and just check in, see how it's going. Drop them a
Yeah.
text, see if they got some time.
Sure thing. I like it. I like it. Well, so you've been a part of a few different organizations over the years. Let's talk a little bit about culture. When we think about culture, we often bring this up on the show.
Yep.
A lot of companies talk about it. Not everybody does a great job of actually executing with strategy and tactics about it. But I'm curious what comes up for you and what's worked. What have you seen work? What's on your hot plate as it pertains to culture building?
Yeah, yeah. So I grin when you say culture, but it's important. But to me, culture is more of an action than a statement. You can go to a lot of meetings. Oh, we're going to do this culture and we're going to do that culture, but it's really just getting out there and being with the people and understanding what's going on. And a lot of that takes, and this is probably me personally, is it takes that live interaction, that face to face interaction, and then having some of those outside of work activities, whether it's I'm, sporting events are great, but you can't really talk a lot there. But it's a dinner, it's a coffee, it's things like that. Talking about, hey, then you bring in some of your more veteran employees plus your new employees, or maybe even some of your leadership. You start to talk. They share some experiences. They share war stories from the past. That starts to build the culture on how we do things and what we're trying to do there. Um,
Hmm.
and just the permission, you should always have this, but in those spaces, the kind of the guard comes down, and you're able to talk about that and stay focused on it and understand that everybody here is is a real person. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I don't know, culture to me is just, it just takes time, and not trying to make light of it, but it's you got to be intentional about how you do it, but it's you can't force it. So I don't know if I'm contradicting myself in that or not, but
Well, it's a tricky little thing, because it's one of those things when it's built really strong and people understand what it is and they know what it looks like. And so in this case, you're describing it's taking time to have some of those conversations, do some after hours things, know when your employees, your team's birthdays are, or maybe their
yeah.
spouses' birthdays are. Some other guests have brought up, really like getting families together when they can, which I think is maybe a little bit more challenging in the post 2020 world. But when can we get people together so that they're knowing more about each other? We spend so much time with these people.
Yeah, and
you
I think
know
one thing about culture, if you can get those different groups, because when you have a problem, everybody's pointing fingers at each other saying this happened or that happened. But if you can just get them to get to know each other, understand the problem, and I don't know who trained us on this, or what the training was, but just understanding that most people and are go in with positive intent. Think that that other person has positive intent. Nobody's there. I think it was when I was with Monsanto, I saw Brett Begeman on stage. He was the COO at the time. And he basically, the organization was having some struggles. He just came out and he said, guys, nobody shows up at work trying to make your job harder. We're all trying to achieve this goal. So you just got to check yourself once in a while and say, okay, this is the objective. And everybody here is trying to achieve it. You just need to understand each other. So.
and we can break that down on a simple level that most people, if anybody who's in a relationship, that will get. I mean, we get into these little spats, with our spouses or significant others every once in a while. And sometimes it just drags on or it goes on a little bit too long, and my wife and I we always, when we go through those conversations, we call it keeping the energy clean, right?
Yeah.
The cleaning sessions.
Yeah.
We eventually get to a point where we think, you know what? Like, okay, we're married. We love each other. We both want the best for each other.
Yeah.
What's the point of this
Yeah.
conversation? What do we both want here?
Yeah.
You
I think
know?
that's right. That's right. You just have to take it back and say, boil this thing down, and what are we trying to do? So,
But the challenging part is that we're all humans, and
oh yeah,
sometimes the emotions get caught up, the hackles get up, and we had fun one of those over the weekend with some things that were going on, and then when you take a moment to calm down, you're like, okay, this is dumb.
yeah,
Right? Let's move through this, right? And as quickly as possible.
yeah.
So, yeah, absolutely. Good. Well, Chris, I'm just curious, what's been one of those big challenges that you've had to overcome over the course of your 25 years?
So I would say a little bit of what you just said there. For me personally, one of the biggest challenges is, hey, we're all trained, even as students, and then as you get into this industry and agriculture in general, we're fixers, right? We like to come solutions. We've all heard say, don't bring your complaints without a solution to me. So that's nothing new. But the biggest challenge for me is to make sure you bring people along for that solution. Because I can come up with an answer for you, like right now, how to fix it. And our boss tell me this. He's like, Chris, you're right most of the time, but you just get there too quick. So slow down and make sure you're bringing people along with you, whether that's your customer, your employees, or even when you're managing upwards, right?
Yeah.
And kind of the way I see it is, it's a 5-step process. Been with different groups which we've trained on and listened to, is like, first you listen, then you repeat, then you answer, then you get confirmation, then you close. But if you listen, repeat, and answer, you're good. But if you just answer, that's called arguing.
Right.
Even if you're saying the same thing. And so that's the biggest thing for me, is just to slow down. So
Yeah. Wow. That's if you guys are listening to this, you just need to rewind about 60 seconds and listen to that again. Listen to Chris say it. I'll try to summarize it. It's just a 5-step process. And this is where so many people get frustrated, because they can see the solution. Like, we can see what needs to be done. Maybe you've been there. Maybe you've been through that exact same scenario and you're like, this is the thing you need to do. Go. right? But that doesn't actually help that individual participant do the work in their brain, right? And actually create those neural pathways that will be there for the long run. So, and I say that I wanted to come back and touch on this really quick because it's really important. So many leaders that we talk to are frustrated and tired by having to repeat themselves and say the same thing over and over, or coach people on the same things again and again and again. And chances are, like, you've told them what to do, but you didn't actually teach them how to get there.
Yep.
Is that fair?
No, that's absolutely right. I mean, I'm a quote guy, and I think, well, I don't think, I know it was Ronald Reagan said it's amazing what you can get done when you don't care who gets the credit, right? Even if they come up with the answer before you, if you're going through that process, that's
Yep.
awesome, right? The goal is to achieve the goal, not to
Right.
not to get a trophy. So,
Yeah. Yep. All right. So listen, repeat, then
so
answer.
listen, repeat, answer, get
Yep.
alignment, and then
Yep.
close. I
And
mean,
then
whether you're,
close.
I mean, and that can be whether you're getting agreement internally with your family situation, with, a
Sure.
customer. It's not always about getting a check. It's just, okay, we got an agreement now. Now we're in. How are we going to move forward? So,
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Cool. Well, I love that. I think it goes in line with the overcoming objections model that we teach,
yeah,
which you would think would be mostly a sales training, but we actually do it more outside of sales training than we
yeah,
do inside of sales training because it's just a common. It happens every day. Happens almost every day. So good stuff, man. What's so that was a big challenge, just being able to handle those situations, learning that, and applying a little bit of humility
yeah,
to the quickness of your thought. What's been one of those big wins that you celebrate?
yeah. Anytime my team achieves a goal, to really celebrate that, like you coach through something.
Yep.
So a couple different things, hey, one year they had a million bag club, right? If the team sold them, and so we got recognized, making sure the team know they did that. Most, I think there was, different companies going through different net promoter score things. The most perfect tens for your team for customer experience. Those are cool things, but really, really is the days when you get to have one of your team members advance their career and you help them through that. They take a bigger job, they move on up. Hopefully, it's within the same organization, but if it's external, that's cool too. So, those are the really cool things.
Yeah. Beautiful, man. I love it. It's super great. We call it the table, in our conversation. So what are you bringing to the table? What's on the table that we can celebrate? If you think about a family sitting around the
Yeah,
table talking about what's been done from a time management perspective, we also talk about what's on the stove this week.
yeah,
So that's the stuff like, hey, this is hot, this is cooking, this is boiling. This
yeah,
is the most important. What's in the refrigerator, getting ready to go on the stove, and then what's in your freezer. And that's how we kind of break down those conversations. But it's all in the effort of getting stuff to the table,
yeah.
being able to celebrate, being able to see. Do you find people struggle to bring challenge, to bring their wins
Yes.
to the table? Why
Yeah,
do you
I've
think?
done that over time, different groups, different organizations, share your success stories, send the email, send a little video about it. It's rare to find those people who step out and do it, but the people who are doing it, it feeds some stuff. It gets some momentum, and everybody enjoys having it. But I don't know if it's just I don't know if if it's a rural mentality or what. But we're cautious to share our successes. It's almost easier to do it in a small group, and I can say, "Hey, Mark, this happened. It's pretty cool," and you can kind of feed it. But there's it's tough to do that. So it takes some discipline as a leader.
Yeah.
And what I've found is, in order to help them out, I hear success stories quite a bit. They'll call and tell me privately, but then we get them on a team call and be, hey, would you tell people about it? And man, they open up when you ask them. But if you
Yeah.
don't,
Yep.
it's tough.
Yeah. Yeah. It's tough. What one of the things that we've started doing with our coaching clients, because we have, as of right now, we have almost 150 active coaching client participants. That number will be close to 500 by the end of the year. And so we want them celebrating their wins,
Yeah,
and we have to give them a system because otherwise they won't.
yeah.
And so one of the things that we've been doing lately is we'll actually send them a list of questions to answer.
Okay.
Simply have them open up their voice recorder on their phone and then read the question and answer it.
Okay.
And then read the question and answer it. And then they send that file back to my team.
Yep.
And we actually take that and turn it into like a 3 or 4 minutes tops, right? It does not need to be, some will go longer, but most are just, they say the minimum required, but it actually puts it into something, and we can take that and send it to either my assistant will do it, or we'll send it to somebody on Upwork for next to nothing, and turn it into a little testimonial, a little video testimonial. And we put graphics around it, and we'll put their headshot with it and put it in
Yep.
quotes. So now it becomes something you can either send around to the team, you can send it to customers as testimonials, those kind of things. Great way to capture testimonials from customers as well. But I just thought I'd share that because
No, that's a good idea. I like
really,
that for sharing success stories because people like those audio clips, right? If I
yeah.
catch a Friday afternoon, I want to tell the team a good job versus just sending a text. Recording the messages, it's a lot more sincere. It's a little bit deeper, so that's
Yep.
cool.
Yeah, just to take a little bit of time, and they're not going to do it for themselves. They're not going to do it if you don't ask.
Yeah.
We're doing so much good work around here. Why aren't people just pouring, the accolades, in and things like that, or celebrating their work? But yeah, there's a definite barrier, a mental block that a lot of us have there. So, well, Chris, what are you reading these days? What podcasts are you listening to that you would
Yeah.
recommend to the group?
So I do a lot traveling, a lot of podcast, right? So leadership from the top. Um, I do the ag bioscience is a pretty good one out of Indiana. Listen to yours, so I'll give you a plug there.
Hey, yeah,
It's fun to hear from all the people, right, and see what they're doing. I do. I mean, Wall Street Journal has one every day, and it'll talk about 20 minutes about this is going on, and it can be anything from I don't know, just the Ukraine to a leader somewhere. So lots of history. But the book I'm reading right now, or not reading, I've read several times. I've actually got my team going through it right now. It's called The Advantage by Patrick Lencioni.
Oh,
So it really talks about organizational health and how that truly is the advantage, right? Products, cool, systems are cool, but people are going to repeat those. So how do you get your organizational health together? And it goes through a couple of things he's done in other ones, like the 5 dysfunctions of a team and that. But this is
yep.
it's a good book. It's work. It's not like you're not reading something quick and easy, but it's a good book. You can get your chapters and tell the team to focus on different chapters there. So
Yeah, really cool. I'm gonna have to take a look at that. So, in the most recent string of podcast interviews, Lencioni has come up again and again. The first time I've heard that specific one.
yeah,
So I think we just need to maybe get an intentional agribusiness leader package that's
yep,
just all Lencioni books, and let
yeah.
people sit and ship it out, because he's got a lot of knowledge in there. That's great.
Yeah, there's a lot of those that go around in these circles. This one's good. It's unique. I mean, the other ones, I mean, I'm sure you've heard before, is the extreme ownership and those things, and those are great.
Yep.
Those are
Yeah.
really good, and I enjoy them. That's one of the podcasts I'll listen to. Right, they're a bit lengthy, so but yeah, it's just yeah, there's lots of good books out there. So
Yep. The one thing about the world we live in today is that there's so much available for either free or cheap.
oh yeah,
I mean, there's no excuse not to grow.
the question we've all got to ask ourselves is, so what? Now what? Right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
you've listened to it. Now what are you going to do with it? You can't do it all, but what are the parts you're going to take back and do something with, or maybe nothing. Maybe you're like, well, that was a great 2 hours. I'm it's nothing I need. So just move on. So
Well, my wife and we're involved in the business together, so she's a team member of mine as well as obviously my spouse. But one thing, so we'll give you an example. We were on a road trip down to Savannah, Georgia recently for my daughter's volleyball tournament.
yeah,
And the kids are all old enough, they've got their own devices, they got their things that they want to pay
sure.
attention to. We'll take some time as a family to have some discussions and whatnot, but it's
I get
11
it.
hours in the vehicle. At some point, people are gonna head over. So we are going through a series of books by Dan Sullivan, who runs Strategic Coach, which is
Okay.
a company for entrepreneurial folks like ourselves. So he has a book called Who Not How, and then another one called 10x is easier than 2x. So we started going through 10x is easier than 2x chapter by chapter, and we would stop and then discuss and then actually send, okay, what are the actionable things out of this chapter that we need, that we either need to do, and we would put those on our list, or that our team can do, and then we would actually delegate those out. We'd send it out in Slack in real
Yeah,
time. So it actually made, now the book is actually a working body of content
that's
that's now
awesome.
inside of our organization. We're able to do that really quickly. So not everybody gets to ride in at, for 10, 12 hours with their partners all the time. But if you have that person or a team where it's like, hey, well, every week, like a book club, right? We're discussing the next chapter,
And that
right?
that's where I'm at on these, and that's awesome that you guys did that, because that sounds pretty exciting. Maybe we're both weird. Um,
Yeah.
but on the books too, right? Don't send it out once and look at it once, right? Send it out once, talk about the general purpose, and then what I do at the next meeting is, okay, here's the chapter or this, and there may only be certain ones you want to focus on, but what are you
Yeah.
going to do with it? So
Yeah, I like your intentional approach to that. I think that's really good. So, well, Chris, as we start to bring this in for a landing, I'm sure we could talk all day about this
yeah,
stuff. It's like, uh, what role does vulnerability play for you in being an intentional leader?
yeah. So I think it's that comes back to culture, that comes back to intentionality, that comes back to everything. It's kind of the core of who you are, which is going to become the core of who the team is. Um, Super important. I think you got to be transparent and you got to be real with people. Now, I fit that category. I'm pretty transparent. There's certain things I can't say because of business secrets, stuff like that. Um, but you need to know what level of emotional intelligence the person you're talking to has.
Mhm.
And if you have the opportunity to deal with the leaders, when I talk about spending time with the best of the best, they're usually pretty good. And I think you address the problem, and once you've listened, and then you repeat it. And sometimes when you repeat it, it's going to sound pretty negative. You don't want to get don't want to bring the drama into it. But I'll tell a lot of people this. I'll be like, I know we're not supposed to go into the ditch, but we're going to. But we're agreeing right now, before we go there, we're coming back out of it with a plan. And so
Right.
I think just allowing them to go there, as long as you've agreed to before you go there to come back out, it
Mhm.
creates a lot of trust and a lot of what I call realism. They don't think you're fake, and then they will be with you when you need them later on, and they trust you. So
Yeah, very good. Well, I love in this interview, I love the very practical, tangible things that you've given us, Chris, that we can like quite literally implement into our days and our work right now. So this has been a fantastic conversation. Anything you'd like to leave or add before we close it off?
no, just it's a great conversation. Appreciate what you're doing. Hope other people continue to stay involved, and this is a small world we live in, so having the interaction and the connectivity is good. So maybe we can all cross paths face to face someday. So
Absolutely. I'm actually thinking about doing a an intentional ag leader meetup slash booth slash series of podcast interviews at Commodity Classic in Denver next year. So maybe that becomes something we can get people to show up to. All right. Thanks for being on, Chris.
all right, thank you, sir.